Welcome, Lucretia Löscher, to the podcast, The Hydrogen Leader. I'm very happy that you're here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm also glad to be here today.
As you know, with this format, we try to inspire hydrogen professionals to become as successful as our guests. You are a very successful businesswoman, and we want to learn from you about your leadership approach, how you see the hydrogen economy, and your growth hacks, how you became so successful. Yeah. So you work for ThyssenKrupp Uhde, and we will come to that later. But I would like to ask you a very basic question. Who is Lucretia Löscher?
Yeah, not so easy to answer. 42 years old. I'm Chief Operating Officer of ThyssenKrupp Uhde, but I'm also business leader with background in several industrial companies. I love technology, so they always had something to do with technology, and I'm very impact driven. So my way of working is very much towards, okay, how can I drive innovation? How can I drive excellence in the business? For me, also my values are very important. So I think they are driving decision making. And if you have them right in place, then it's very easy also to make decisions and to make decisions that you can also still accept a couple of years later.
And what would you consider your core values that you are fundamentally important for you?
So, of course, treating people with respect is one of the important values. Then also, of course, the aspect that we want to do a business that also adds value to society. For me, companies are what the people need. So they should do business that helps the people and helps the planet. And so I think also what we do and how we do it should match that expectation.
That is basically the businesswoman, Lucretia, right? And is there anything that you are in particular passionate about?
Yeah, first of all, I'm a proud mom of a dog, Nila.
Okay.
She becomes 16 soon, a senior dog by now. And I'm very driven sports kind of athlete. I love high altitude mountaineering, go on the highest mountains of the different continents. I'm also passionate about sharks, and I'm a dive master. And whenever I can, I go on some trips to dive with sharks.
Crazy.
And also,
Where do you do that?
So I have a passion for these larger sharks, like tiger sharks, bull sharks, also hammerheads. And one of the best spots is in the Bahamas. Also, Costa
Okay.
Rica is a
Nice.
great spot for it. So all the countries that are responsible and try to protect the animals, that's where you find them. And it's just amazing to see them and to see how they swim and interact with you.
Beautiful creatures.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing this. You are having a very impressive career. You started, as I understand, as a senior consultant in Siemens, and then rised up the ranks to VP in Siemens Energy. And now we talked about it. You are Chief Operating Officer of ThyssenKrupp Uhde. Yeah. What is a Chief Operating Officer actually doing?
Yeah, Chief Operating Officer can be everything, right? So I think, first of all, ThyssenKrupp Uhde is a chemical plant engineering company. So we have the technology and also EPC competence to design and then also construct plants that have a chemical output like ammonia, methanol, and so on. So being a Chief Operating Officer in this area means that I'm responsible for all the operating functions like engineering, process technology, project management, commissioning, construction, fabrication, and also, of course, environment, health, and safety as a basis for our way of working.
And I understand you are a board member, right? And so you are basically responsible for everything globally.
Yeah.
And how many people do you lead?
Yeah, so we have 4,500 people, and they are not only in Germany. We have actually a wonderful global setup with a large team in India, and also a significant team in Egypt, in Thailand, where we have a strong competence in module fabrication, also a team in South Africa, and of course also a team in the US for the local markets.
And was that always your career goal to become a board member because you like to climb mountains and like to be a business shark?
I would not say there is a goal. I did not have the goal to become a board member. I'm very much driven by impact. And I think impact can be generated on all levels. However, I really like to take the responsibility for the overall business. And also, I think one of the skills that I recognize I have is to see the overall picture and to then drive the right conclusions, to use the information I have to set up a proper strategy and then to drive execution. And you can do that
That's
the
the hard
best.
part, right?
Yeah. PowerPoint is easy, right?
Exactly.
Implementing what you think
Exactly.
is the right strategy, that is where it comes to the difficult part.
Yeah, I think you have a very famous name, at least in the German industry, because you worked for Siemens as a senior consultant at a time when Peter Löscher was the CEO. Are you related to him, or that might not be the most easy way to start, right?
Yeah, is a great opportunity to clarify,
Yeah.
perhaps. So
Please do so.
I think it took me obviously 25 years to recognize that this name is somehow known, but I have no relationships to Peter Löscher. I met him a few times, and I then told him there is this rumor I would be his daughter. He was also very surprised. I can say I'm from East Germany, from Leipzig.
Right.
And my dad is from Saxony,
Yeah.
and is actually also an engineer, and was technical director of the largest bakery in Eastern Germany before the unification of Germany. So,
Right. So good.
no relation to Peter Löscher.
Good that we have this out of the way. But I think you have worked throughout your career with very powerful and impactful managers. Do you have any people you consider your mentor, which help you, where you learn things that you cannot read in books?
Yeah, very early during my studies, I actually financed my studies by working with and for Porsche in Leipzig.
Right.
And there, Margit Frank, she was leading marketing at that point in time. She was actually, she was great, not my mentor, but she gave me a lot of good hints that I took on. And then later in my life, the first real mentor was Christian Bruch, the CEO of Siemens Energy.
Yes.
And I really admire his leadership style, and I believe we had great discussions where he taught me some lessons that I still remember and that helped me in my leadership.
What is the most memorable lesson you learned?
Yeah, one, and sometimes it requires perspective, but one thing that he said is, not everything needs a response. Some things just should pass without a response. And that's something which requires also some patience, and also the possibility with your emotions to stop them and to not to react. But it is really helpful to focus on the most important things and to let the other things go.
My father also gave me a similar lesson, because he said, if you want to kill a cockroach, don't react to every move. And that is basically the same thing in different terms, right?
Correct.
When you are such a, let's say, busy business professional, you probably not always go home with full of energy and say, I did something great today. Sometimes it's average, sometimes it's okay. But what was your proudest moment in your career where you really said, okay, this was me. I really did something great. And what was also a very tough moment for you, and how did you handle it?
Yeah, there are always good and bad days, right?
Yes.
I think it's a bit like a marathon. You have also, it's about persistence and perseverance. And let me say there are really there are things I'm proud of, like when the strategy that I have set up actually really materialized in a successful. One of the topics was that in my former role, I've set up a competence center in Serbia, and we ramped it up very quickly to more than 100 people. And it was an extremely successful organization, and it still is, luckily. And that makes me proud, right?
Sure, sure,
And
yeah.
it's not
And that was your idea to do it.
it was what my idea, and of course, in these large companies, you are never alone, right?
Yes,
You can
you're right.
only do it with a team. And
Yes.
I had great people in my team that were also willing to execute that strategy with me. And we did it together. And celebrating together is also much more fun than celebrating alone.
Yes.
And I think that is also one important element in my leadership style. I really like to acknowledge everyone that contributes. And it's a team spirit that drives motivation to also go through the times that are perhaps not so easy.
Yeah. And just coming back to this, what would be a tough moment for you? Is there anything that you can share where others might learn from?
Yeah. So when you take over a new organization, a new team, and there are often areas for improvement where we discuss them, where we develop ideas how to change the situation to the better. And then after some time, after a year, after 1.5 years, sometimes you have to recognize that the respective leader, the team lead, is not able to change and is not able to implement what we have aligned. And that's, of course, tough, because then you have to have these discussions in which you share that you're not happy with the result, and that is actually still a gap in the performance, and that at the end, you also sometimes need to put new managers in place in order to execute the strategies, and also to make sure that the overall organization is successful. And that can mean that this person gets a different role in the company. And sometimes, of course, it's also not possible.
Yeah, yeah. I could imagine. Yeah, that's not the fun part.
That
of
is
it.
not fun, no.
Exactly. I could imagine. Yeah. So I have one question which I will reserve for my very end of the interview, which relates to the leadership. But this is, let's say, a spoiler for everybody listening. But let's come to more the business part of what you're doing right now. ThyssenKrupp, for me, was very known to be a steel manufacturer. And I understand ThyssenKrupp Uhde is more the engineering powerhouse of ThyssenKrupp Group. So what is, you said it at the beginning, but can you say it once again? What is this company specialized on?
Yeah, so we do chemical plant engineering. So we have a technology side. We have own technologies that we have developed, where we provide licenses to companies that want to use that technology. But we also have EPC competence. That means that we can engineer the respective plant. We can procure the equipment, and we also construct
EPC, engineering, procurement, construction. Okay, because that
Exactly.
was not obvious for me at the very
Yeah.
start. Yes.
And we work with customers that are in the chemical area. They then sell normally these chemicals, but now in the new setup where ammonia or methanol also become energy carriers, it's also financial investors that could be our customers, also companies that wanna trade. So different customers are now our
Okay,
customers.
so if I understand it correctly, there is this core business model where you are an engineering EPC service provider, where you design and structure a great plant. Or do you really procure the entire stuff and deliver it as a one-stop shop, that if an investor says, I want to have a green ammonia plant, dear Lucretia, here is 100 million, please build it for me.
For 100 million is a very small plan.
Yeah, I know your numbers are even bigger, but we will come to that. Yeah, but how is actually the core business model of your company working?
Yeah, so we can do everything from just license to full technology and EPC.
Okay.
On the construction side, we normally work with partners. That's why we mainly do construction management, and then have a construction partner that we collaborate with. And we also sometimes do fabrication, which means instead of having it stick built on site, we fabricate modules and then ship it where it has to be built at the end, and it's much quicker than on site. But that is details. It's basically kind of business model differences in the different projects. But we can do it all. We, of course, also have some service business that's much smaller than the technology and EPC side, but it becomes more and more interesting going forward with customers that are not do not have a large operations team and a strong background in chemical plants.
Yeah, and given your global reach, you mentioned it at the beginning, I think you're working on these things. You already always mentioned technology EPC. I know.
We are very proud of this.
Yeah, please explain what is so unique about it, because when I hear EPC business and where you build plans, I think it is a no-brainer that it has to do with technology. So why do you put so much emphasis on this technology EPC, please?
So that's where we are kind of unique, because either normally you have technology companies that have that sell licenses and that own these technologies, or you are an EPC provider and you buy a license or you get a license from your customer and then you execute the project. Having both for us is really a unique selling point, because we understand the technology, we can standardize much better, which gives a design advantage for the customers, ultimately helps the customers to get FID, to have a bankable project. And especially now with new types of plants coming in, blue ammonia, green methanol, this is really key. And that's what we also then promote and offer.
I think you can also give advice to investors what might be the best technology for a certain purpose, right?
Yeah, we try to be extremely early with the customers. We have also, we call it RAMS studies, so basically renewable hydrogen, ammonia, methanol studies.
Make a feasibility study.
Exactly. And we really take in all the external factors of where the customer would like to set up the plant and give advice how to do it. For example, a storage element can be very costly, so giving advice about the size of the plant so that the storage doesn't need to be too big. But also location-wise, because you, especially on the renewable side, the renewable electricity needs to be extremely low cost in order to currently have a business case for those kinds of plants. And with all the knowledge that we have, we give advice to the customers what to do and where to do it, but then also give recommendations to have a very efficient equipment set up and also to work with standardized equipment. And we
bring down the
to bring down the cost. At the end, the customers don't do it because they love to decarbonize the planet. there needs to be a business case because at the end they need to earn money with it.
Right.
And that's why this knowledge of ours and of our engineers is extremely relevant. And that's why we are proud of this T next to EPC.
No, I understand. But let's put a little bit more meat on it, because I was not shocked, because I know, but for many people, 100 million is a big number, right? Can you explain some of your high-profile projects? Where are you doing these projects? Which are the biggest ones, and are they hydrogen related? Can you give more insights on some real projects that you are currently pursuing?
Sure. We have, of course, a lot of them. I will have to pick a few. One that I'm extremely proud of is actually also in the area of green methanol and then methanol to gasoline.
Right.
It is a modularized plant, which is also really an opportunity for us to drive innovation. We have the
Well, is it in which
the
area?
module yard is in Thailand.
Okay.
And the final location will be in Saudi Arabia.
Right.
And why is it special? So the methanol technology comes from us. The methanol to gasoline technology comes from a third party. So we also take technologies from a third party in.
Right.
And the output will be used for Formula One, to have basically green fuels for Formula One in 2026, 27.
So I know the normal Formula One. I know Formula One. Will there be a new series with green methanol?
I think you of course stay curious, but perhaps if you watch the regular Formula One, you will get to know our plant better, because it's something which is on the plan, of course, also to decarbonize the regular Formula One.
Okay, so one project in Thailand and Saudi Arabia, more on green methanol, and we come to the production method later. You also have other projects?
Yes. Then another highlight, of course, is our new pilot plant for ammonia cracking in Germany. We just recently announced a collaboration with Uniper.
Right.
We now set up a pilot plant to basically showcase how the effectiveness of the plant is and how it works. And then we will also build an industrial size ammonia cracker.
That's in Eastern Germany, right? Or where is it?
No, the pilot is very much in the west of Germany.
Sorry.
And then, of course, the industrial plant needs to be where the ships arrive, so that then the ammonia can be cracked and you can then transport the hydrogen to where it is needed.
So actually, you are, for normal listeners who are not engineers, are using many new words.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. No, this is all good, but let's unpack this a little bit, because I know green hydrogen. You are saying green ammonia.
Yeah.
So can you explain for layman terms what green ammonia is? I think I know it, but I think you can explain it much better than I do it.
So you take green electricity and you take water, and then you split water in oxygen and hydrogen.
Right.
Oh, it's a green hydrogen. And then we have an air separator where we require the N, because
the nitrogen.
Exactly, the nitrogen. And then basically nitrogen and hydrogen come together and you have green ammonia.
And this process is called a synthesis, right? So you put these molecules together.
Correct.
But green ammonia, because it's produced by renewable energy, the hydrogen part basically is gaseous, right?
Yeah.
But you can liquefy it. That's the beauty of it, right?
Yeah, and you, of course, you want to also transport it liquefied.
Right.
Yeah? And at the end, it's all about the density. So why are we talking about ammonia and not about hydrogen? Normally, you produce it where you have great access to renewable energy.
Sun and wind.
Sun, wind, also hydro power is really an interesting piece, because it's available 24 hours.
Exactly.
At least in most of the cases. And it's not these spots are normally not the parts of the world where you need the energy. So you need to transport it. And then there are two ways, mainly. Either you have a pipeline, which is great. Then you need to see that the length of the pipeline is not longer than 3,000 kilometers. Otherwise, it has an issue with the efficiency. Yeah. And the alternative is that you use shipping to transport the ammonia to where it is needed.
And you mentioned this term of cracking.
Yeah.
So imagine you have produced great green ammonia and you shipped it from Dubai to Rotterdam. What do you do with this green ammonia to get it back to hydrogen?
So basically the opposite than what we did in the synthesis.
Yeah.
So we crack it and then have the nitrogen and the H2.
Right.
And the H2 is what we then need as hydrogen to transport it further to the industrial plant where it's needed, either in a.
And normally the purity demands for this type of hydrogen are much lower than the purity levels needed in, let's say, the mobility sector, right?
Yeah, on the purity side, I think there really is a lot going on also on the regulatory side. There we have a lot of discussions about purity, and because the purity will be great where we crack it. Yeah. And then, of course, there is this transport again. And then if there is a need for highly purified hydrogen, you may need to purify it where
with
it's
additional
needed.
processes.
Yeah, exactly. So, but it's from a technology perspective not a complicated process. But of course, you try to be as efficient as possible. So, but the purification at our cracker will be very high.
There is one thing I learned, that sometimes there is this claim of ammonia being toxic. But as far as I understand, this is a very known material to the global industry, and there is no risk with transporting green ammonia.
Ammonia and urea are, fertilizers,
Right.
and of course, it gets transported also today, also in the last thousands of years would be a bit too much, but in the last century it was transported already.
Right.
And there are a lot of ships that transport ammonia. So that's also the good news. For both ammonia and methanol, there is infrastructure in place.
Right.
Yeah? And of course, still you need to be mindful what you transport. It's a chemical, and you need to make sure that the transportation is safe. But it is exactly why the experience from the past decades will help.
Okay, so we learned basically, if there is a need to deliver hydrogen for a longer period of more than 3,000 kilometers, shipping becomes a good economic play, because for many reasons. And in that process, you basically first produce the ammonia in a green way, then ship it, and then with the cracking process, get hydrogen back. And what I have learned from my co-founder, Steven, is that if you crack it properly, there is no toxic risk anymore.
Yeah.
That's the good news. So as long as the shipment is under control, which is a very known technology, we don't have to worry in that sense, right? Okay.
And for everything, there are quality standards also for the ships, of course.
I could imagine, yeah.
So, and also in each and every region of the world where we have activities are special requirements. So, and we are, of course, experts and work also with local experts to make sure that everything is according to the rules and that the operations are safe.
You still owe me a number, because you commented that this 100 million is so low. What is the average size of investment needed for projects that you are normally doing in your core business?
Industrial scale ammonia projects, 3,500 metric tons per day, something like that. They go into the still single digit but billion range.
Right.
And that is so basically you have smaller plants or simple plants in the 2 to 3 billion range, complex plants where perhaps also not only one chemical is the output, but then several, so urea, ammonia, nitric acid, etc. You can also end up with 8 billion euro. So and that, of course, those projects we don't do alone. We then have partners that we collaborate with.
And is the gas and oil industry basically your client who would now try to advance in the green ammonia sector? Or who is basically saying, I have 8 billion and I want to do a project with you, Lucretia?
This is one of the new developments, right? That typical customers that were beforehand more in the oil and gas sector, that they, because of this energy carrier skill that ammonia and methanol have, that they are interested in this. So when they decided to also add to their fossil activities also some that are less carbon intense, that can also be blue, by the way, where carbon capture is then relevant, they became customers or potential customers of ours. And they have, of course, deep expertise in process industry, but not so much in chemical plants. And that is where, but petrochemical industry is also not far away from that. So it's actually adjacent, and that's why it's a very natural move into that direction.
Okay. You mentioned this milestone FID earlier before, and I think there is a lot of talking in the hydrogen economy about that, because currently some projects are planned but don't make it to this bankable situation. What is the reason for that? What is your view on the problem with this FID milestone? What is it actually, and what is your view?
Is basically at the moment when the project is fully financed, and it is so difficult because banks don't like uncertainty. They normally look into regulation if that is clear, and of course in some parts of the world regulation is still not fully clear on changes sometimes after only a few years, which is not a time period that we can deal with, because even the project time to set up the plant takes 3 to 5 years, right? And then the plant needs to operate for
30 years.
15, 20, 30 years, exactly. So so that is one important element, the regulatory stability. The other element is, of course, offtake. So especially for the decarbonized chemicals, you still see that there is a huge price difference. And this price difference is in some parts of the world acknowledged, and we see that there are also offtake agreements signed. But looking back to 2-3 years ago, COP Dubai, I remember everyone was talking about this huge increase of offtake. I would argue it didn't come in the speed that was expected. We see offtake agreements signed, but slower. So we see that it's all a bit delayed. And but if you want to have a bank that finances your project, then you need an offtake agreement, and that is one other element that may hinder you from having this wonderful FID. And then, the other topics that come to my mind is then also, of course, a very convincing design of the plant, potential. So, and that is where we, of course, can help and can early engage and give advice.
And you mentioned earlier that sometimes you also have financial institutions that ask for your expertise. And what I've learned from a banker in London was that big uncertainty about the value of such a plant or an electrolyzer in 5 years' time. So nobody knows what is the value of a used asset in such an early industry, which is hard to create a bankable project, right?
Yeah, and with electrolyzers, that's a equipment element in this equation that is, I would not say it's new, but it's relatively new compared to compressors or transformers or pumps. And of course, the membranes and how long does it last, and how can it be operated that it lasts longer. There is a lot, there is really good development. A lot of the providers showcase that they are very reliable, but this is of course also something where banks look into and want to know the details.
And then these uncertainties, somebody needs to be liable and commit and say it's working out. Is that your company, or are you the mastermind of these big projects, coordinating who is taking over which risk, how to share risks? Because I think that you need to be very granular in not putting the risk only on one person, right?
So the customers are the pioneers, I would argue, and that is also where we need to appreciate those companies that currently move ahead, and that in the different sizes, smaller projects, larger scale projects, that they make a move and also take the risk that they have not the full clarity of what is going to come. But we really acknowledge that there are customers, and we see that in different parts of the world. Europe is going ahead. We have companies in Middle East going ahead, in Asia. So almost in all parts of the world, we have these pioneers that make sure that they have a project that is financed and that can get executed. And that's what we need.
I think this is a good statement, because I think change requires people to pioneer, right? And in your type of business, people need to commit big to make a move, right? Because it's not about here and there some money, it's really large scale projects. Yeah, but it's good that you are saying this, that in Europe and in the Middle East, and we heard it from a podcast which we had also earlier with Cornelius Matthijs from Dubai. He said something similar, like Aqua Power is a very pioneering company building big projects.
I can name a couple. Energia in Finland just recently signed a green methanol project with us. Also Finland moves ahead. We have companies in Spain moving ahead. So I think we can be really also proud, and also I'm a proud European, so I also have to say it's not all great in Europe, but we are also seeing really a lot happening.
One last thing to this offtake topic, because when we first met in Hamburg at this H2 summit, I think in the course of the year, I remember in your speech you said the magic mark is somehow $2 per kilo hydrogen, if I recall it. Can you explain why this is so important, or did I have it wrong in my memory?
No, it's not wrong, but it's what the end. So I think when we met, it was also after we discussed. I was also participating in another meeting in Rome where we actually discussed a hydrogen pipeline, the Southern Corridor, which goes from Algeria, Tunisia, through Italy, Austria, and then Germany. And in these discussions, it became clear that the end users require a really low price in hydrogen in order to make it for them a business case. Yeah, and that's important, right? That's how the market works. You have supply and demand, and somehow you need to figure out if there is a price match. Yeah. Yes. And we are clearly not there. And also, if you talk with electrolyzer companies, it's really difficult to reflect how we can get there, because it's different than in the solar industry earlier, where you had, due to volume, a significant price reduction. Yeah, so their volume was really driving efficiency and price. In our plants, you will still require equipment that has a very stable price and which has a high demand, which is normally not helping to drive costs down, like compressors, like also pumps and the electrolyzer itself. So and we see there is a price decrease in the electrolyzer side, but we need to see how far that can go. And that is why I think the ambition to go down to 2 euro per kilogram is very high. And we need to get support from courageous customers, but also from governments to start the journey, and to also perhaps acknowledge that not every molecule needs to be green in order to get it up and running, and to see how we can drive efficiency in the overall process. We will try to do our part with ammonia or methanol or hydrogen production, and the other parts of the equation also need to contribute.
Great. So, but what I get out of it, a lot is moving, despite we are not yet there.
Correct.
Yeah, and this is more or less the positive picture that we somehow can summarize. So your company is basically an expert in these large projects, helping to produce green ammonia, green methanol, or green hydrogen, or even also blue. And the main message is basically let's start and get in the direction, right? So now coming towards closing more or less, I have 3 topics I want to talk about, but then we I think have produced a very interesting dialogue. So when do you think will we be at the point that either green ammonia, green hydrogen, or green methanol is, let's say, a given commodity? Will it take 10 years, or are we still up for 20 more years so that it is just like there is oil and gas?
Where is my glass ball? No, I think we need to acknowledge that there was quite some volatility in the last years. And I mentioned it already. I think COP in Dubai, everyone was talking about the transformation. I recall that everyone had higher targets, right? Also with regard to sustainable aviation fuels. There was not a single company that was not committing to a very ambitious target in a shorter time period. Yeah. And I think then somehow we hit reality.
Yeah.
And we see that there are countries that make progress. In Australia, we have now projects that get subsidies, really large-scale projects. In one of them, we are also active, where we hope we can now, pre-FEED is done, where we can hopefully move very soon into FEED and execution. So there we will see in a couple of years really large-scale green ammonia production. We see that countries like South Korea, like Japan, are very clear that that are in the process in setting up the rules. And they also look into options, right? Not always, for example, cracking ammonia. They are also looking into burning ammonia right away. So there are different approaches, different paths that are also currently assessed to make it viable, economically viable. And then we also have, of course, in the Middle East, a lot of dynamic on the blue side, where there are commitments in place. Europe, in general, I think we try to go in both directions, green and blue, depending on the countries and the fuels that are available. So, and in Europe, there is just yesterday, we re-emphasized 2040 and 2050 as targets for decarbonization and net zero. So I think in this time span, right, until 2050, a lot will happen. How fast it will happen is really hard to say, because that depends on so many external factors. I think we need to, it's like...
It's a bumpy road forward.
Yeah, and it's like in a strategy, right? You need to make a move.
Yeah.
And you need to make a decision. And then if it's not exactly right, you may need to change it a bit. And it's not a mistake. It's just a correction because you learned something. And that's how we need to also act.
Great. Now coming, as you paid it, I've learned so much already. I'm dreaming of EPC now. But I wanted to come back to the leadership topic at the very end, because I think you are a businesswoman that has the chance to inspire many, also female professionals who strive for a career. Why would you say should also female people strive for a career in the energy sector?
Yeah, first of all, this sector as such is super interesting. As a dynamic environment, we can really create impact for the planet and for our companies. Let me argue, women are not a minority. We are as many as you guys.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's why it is appropriate to have the same share at the table. And women, I think, have great skills in collaboration, in also seeing the full picture, also change, right? It's a huge transformation, and we can contribute, and we have great skills, and that's why I can only encourage everyone to invest and to
come to the table.
If it is in you, you feel it. If you want to become a leader and you want to lead teams and you want to go through all this human topics, the emotions that the team brings, and the difficulties that come with managing teams. If you feel that in yourself, please feel invited. There is great opportunity, and go for it.
Great. So this was a very passionate close. Thank you. I have learned so much from you. I think it was a big pleasure for me to have this discussion, and I'm sure our audience will like it. Thank you very much, dear Lucretia, for coming to us here. We, as Highfinder, are also very passionate people. You got to know Stephen and me, and we also want to help the economy grow better and grow faster with the work we are doing. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to talk with you.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.